context within
Thank you.
that.
We'll move on
now
to question 67.
Also. Thank you.
Donnchadh O'Leary.
Minister, since our last engagement on this issue, there have been we have had the Primetime Investigates documentary. We've had considerable reporting by Neil Michael from the Examiner, and a lot of really disturbing and worrying disclosures and descriptions of what was going on. It's very clear that Air Corps personnel were exposed to unsafe working conditions, exposed to dangerous chemicals, and there does seem to be a very strong correlation to very serious illness and bad health outcomes. These are people who serve the state. They should get support. So, Minister, what do you intend to do about it, and how do you intend to ensure that they're looked after?
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. And again, thank you for raising this, and maybe just to acknowledge again your own engagement around the issue. And I welcome the opportunity to set out the position as it stands, as there are multiple ongoing cases before the courts. I know I said this before, obviously I'm limited in that regard in terms of what I can say so that I don't prejudice any of the ongoing litigation. And I know that you've previously said that it's possible to discuss both, but I just always want to be careful in that regard. The advice available to me is that any view that I have here, obviously, again, it just needs to be careful how it's expressed so that we don't undermine the current process. Each claim has to receive the necessary case-specific analysis and consideration, because what's clear is that each individual case is different in a certain extent, or to a certain extent, and that's something that's become clear to me. I've had an initial brief from my officials, a number of briefs from my officials on this, and then I requested further detailed analysis from them. I've received that and carefully considered it. I then convened a meeting with the Attorney-General, with representatives from the State Claims Agency and officials from my own department as well, to discuss it further, having sought various different advices. The accusations, I suppose, that the state is prolonging legal proceedings as a deliberate tactic, can I just say, is not the case. And it's important to stress that at every step of the way, the engagement that we've had, be it through the State Claims Agency, working with individuals, has been to try and find a resolution and to work constructively with them. But the State Claims Agency have confirmed to me that they've made representations to the legal representatives of the litigants to explore the possibility of mediation to find a resolution to this issue. So this is the way that we want to move forward, that we can mediate and find a way forward. But those approaches have been rejected pending the cases having been set down for hearing. So I really would encourage all of those involved. We want to find a way forward. We don't want this to have to go to a court setting. There is an offer there from the State Claims Agency to work with them and to work with their legal representatives, because I think we all want to find a mutually agreeable resolution, taking into consideration what people have gone through, taking into consideration the current individual situation for those involved in this overall. But I would encourage them to please take up that offer and to engage more broadly with us.
Minister, I have to say that's a frustrating response, to be honest, because you're well aware that I have outlined the point in the past, and I would say that there are issues in relation to the handling of the State Claims Agency of these cases. It isn't appropriate for us to get into individual cases. I've never asked you to. I've never tried to discuss individual cases in this chamber with you or your predecessor. The issue here is in relation to a whole category of people who were acting in the service of state. They were supporting the Defence Forces in terms of the maintenance of aircraft. And you have potentially, as the Air Corps Chemical Abuse Survivors Group has outlined, potentially 130 premature deaths. Clearly, we need to get to the bottom of that. I'm not asking for an update on the legal side, albeit I think there are issues in relation to the State Claims Agency approach. What I'm asking for is what you propose to do, and we have discussed it previously, in terms of the whole category, in terms of health supports, potentially, a package of health supports and health safeguarding, including forms of screening, an accountability mechanism. There has to be an accountability mechanism as well.
Thank you, Deputy. So what we have at the moment are 22 active cases before the courts. We have 22 active cases of which we are trying to engage with. And the same as you, I want to understand, is this something that's happening on a wider scale, but at the same time as well, we have to identify whether or not there is a consistent pattern here. There's work that has been done within the department to look and see whether or not this is something that has been happening on a broader scale, whether or not there is a consistent pattern beyond the 22 people that you're talking about here, and even within those cases where there isn't a consistent pattern in terms of health implications or issues that have come to the fore. So I'm not for a second disputing the fact that the people who are engaging with have health concerns and have had health concerns. I don't think there's ever been a dispute that there needed to be better measures in place in terms of health and safety, whether it was gloves, whether it was handling, but whether or not the exposure then had the overall effect, as has been, I suppose, set out by the individuals in the 22 active cases. That is what is being discussed, that is what has been engaged on at the moment, and I would encourage and ask all of those to engage further in a mediation process that we have been actively trying to pursue, because I think this is the best route to be able to come to a conclusion for all of the individuals concerned.
Minister, if there is a pattern, we're not going to find that out in the High Court. That's going to be found out through a process that, your department seemed to be considering. A memo was due to be brought to you in the first quarter. We're past the first quarter now. That's what I recall you saying. Have you considered this memo in relation to a whole category approach? So we'll say, look, please don't go back into the legal cases. The issue here is, the clear example is in relation to Australia, where the Australian Air Force saw that there was an issue. They engaged with the group. People retained their right to take cases as they saw fit, but there was health screening, there was an accountability mechanism, and there was supports in terms of health. There's nothing preventing you from doing that. So, Minister, will you consider, and when will you make a decision as to whether the Irish Government will put in place a process, such as there was in Australia, a study of health outcomes, identify whether there is causation, and ensure that people who are very, very sick, a lot of these people, there have been heart conditions, there's been colorectal cancer, there has been suicides. Clearly there's a need for things like routine cardiac screening. These are all things that can be done without any reference to the court cases. So when are you going to make a decision on a solution for the whole category?
Minister, to reply.
Deputy, you referenced Australia, and if you look at the case in Australia, you had de-sealing and re-sealing programmes. So the maintenance workers were quite literally required to physically climb into fuel tanks of F-111 fighter jets. They worked in extremely cramped conditions for extended periods with chronic confined exposure to concentrated hazardous substances. Nobody has suggested at any point that this is in any way aligned with the conditions in the Air Corps. What we've said very clearly is that there needed to be better health and safety standards, and that's something that's been made very clear, and those changes have been made. But whether or not, and you've outlined it yourself, we've quite a significant different number of different conditions that have, I suppose, come to the fore with either the litigants that have been mentioned. But again, whether or not this was specific to the exposure, that hasn't been identified yet. And absolutely what I'd say to you is that there was a body of work being done initially to see, is there a connection, is there a way that this can show that there is an increased level of particular types of health complications, is there an increased level within the Air Corps during that time because of that exposure. So that body of work is still underway at the moment, but I don't think that we can say this is the same as Australia.
In the name of Deputy Healy. Sorry, Minister.
That work is underway,
and I will
bring that to the Dáil, and
I'll
bring that to your attention when I can. But
thank you.
I want to make sure that if people have been harmed here, that we know about it. But I also want to make sure that those who are involved in the process, that they can engage with us and come to a conclusion on that process as well.